Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Kemp. I'm the clerk for the township. Welcome to the Township of Walnut-Calderman. I'm going to start the meeting and then we'll turn it over. A couple of things. First of all, the committee, this is a public meeting this is a meeting that's open to the public. So the public is able to view and listen to the discussion. However, it's just the committee members that will be speaking unless there's a motion for someone else to address the committee. So typically what happens is we follow the procedural bylaw, which a copy has been provided to each of the committee members. And so anytime there's a motion on the floor, it needs to be seconded. We discuss the motion that's on the floor, then there's a vote taken, and then that's the motion that's carried. As far as when you're speaking, we ask that only one person speak at a time. And unfortunately, we didn't have enough mics. So you'll have to share the mic. So turn the mic on and then try to speak directly in front of it so everyone can hear you. Helps if it's turned on. When it's like reading, you'll know your mic is on. We're going to change the order here only because we're going to do the introductions first. So we'll start with Councillor Ainsworth and we'll go around the table. So.
Okay, well, obviously I'm Mike Ainsworth, councillor here, and you know, I'm glad that it's to see so many people come out, and part of being on this committee was to take something good that we have and make it even better. So glad to see everybody's interest and stuff and coming out.
Hi, I'm Deputy Mayor Stover, John Stover. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for your time and your commitment for coming out tonight. We have, I think it's going to be a good committee, and I look forward to all your ideas. Everyone that's here, we have a variety of people that we have brought to the table, and we look forward to hearing all your concerns, your issues, and how we can make this better and what we need to do. So welcome and thanks for coming out tonight.
Jennifer Current, I'm the senior planner for the Township of Walnut-Calderman. I provide, I guess, guidance or not guidance, information for council consideration.
I'm Daryl Hall. I'm the Chief Building Official Bylaw Enforcement Officer for the Township of Walnut-Calderman. I provide anything to do code related and building code related and bylaw enforcement.
Good evening. My name is Grit Cole. I have been following the short-term rental issue since its inception in this township, attending all the meetings, meeting with residents from all corners of the township regarding this issue. And it just seemed a natural fit to kind of follow along. I believe in entrepreneurship and I believe in the rights of all taxpayers. So I'm here to find a good resolution for all.
My name's Jamie Brown. I've lived in this area for 8 years now. And I have a lot of concerns about Airbnbs, as kind of in the middle of a lot of them. So we have a lot of quote unquote headaches with them, but I'm here to learn and figure out the whole issue as it comes out. I'd like to know a lot more about it. So I'm here to learn and give my ideas as well.
Thank you. Colleen.
I'm Colleen Mitchell. I'm a Fairview resident. I have an interest in the short-term rental issue, and I'm interested in contributing to the discussion and speaking about the bylaw and the enforcement standard.
Hi, I'm Nicole Sterling. I've lived in this township for over 27 years. I do run a short-term rental. It is seasonal and I've been running it for 2 years. It has been the most pleasant experience we have ever had by doing it. So we would like to share that with you to, if you are against STRs, to maybe change your mind or, you know, work with you. Understandably, there are some bad apples. So we would like to show you that we're not all bad. There's a great experience here to be had. Thank you.
I'm Elisa Mountain and I have lived in the township and owned property for 7 years. Prior to that, I lived in Grammy Township my whole life. So very local, and my husband and I are in the process of building a home with the opportunity to have a short-term rental until we realized that there was actually a ban on any new ones. So we're very interested to see how this plays out and contribute to the discussion and hopefully make it more fair for everyone.
I'm Jamie Somerville. I grew up in the area. I owned a short-term rental for 5 years and then currently own for the past 5 years a tourist resort in Alma-Calderman. I would love to come for a solution for the short-term rentals by following some rules and regulations.
I'm Stephen Lawson, fairly new to the township. My wife and I bought a house in Lakeport almost 2 years ago. We're very excited. We love our new community. We love our new neighbors in our neighborhood. I recently started a Facebook group page for Lakeport, which is really exciting. Got a lot of members. And I'm looking forward to sharing with them what happens here tonight and in the future regarding short-term rentals. We're not planning on offering short-term rentals. We're very civic minded. We want to get involved, and as property owners, we want to be able to have a say and kind of figure out what's going on and share it with our neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy? You're muted.
Hi, so I live in the township. We've been here for about 12 years on our farm. It's our happy place. I'm a 2-time super host on Airbnb. I fully believe in bringing tourism to the county and finding a safe and happy medium for all of the issues, including noise and parking. And I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. And Valerie?
Hi, I live on Rice Lake, and I and residents on the private road where I live brought 2 petitions to council, initially saying that we didn't want any Airbnbs or short-term rentals. But if council went ahead with it, we brought forward a series of things we thought would help make good neighbors. I live right next to one that is being operated currently. So I have that experience, but in the neighborhood, there's about a half a dozen. So I think that I can bring that opportunity and experience to the debate. And I've had a chance to look at the Tiny example, the township of Tiny. And I thought there were a lot of good ideas in there that perhaps we might decide to add to the bylaw that's in existence now.
Thank you. And Yolanda?
Oh,
I'm Yolanda Melbourne. I'm the deputy clerk at the Township of Alma-Calderman. I will be the administrator of the Zoom meetings as well as taking the minutes for the committee. So invitations that go out, agendas, everything like that. I'm the person to contact for committee members. Thank you.
Okay, so the first order of business then would be the approval of the agenda as circulated. So if I can have, sorry, yep. I did, but okay.
No, thank you.
No problem. So the approval of the agenda as circulated, Britt? And do I have a seconder? Mike?
Excuse me,
Sorry.
sorry, can I speak?
Yep.
Is there anything that we can add or suggest
Now-
adding, and when do I do that?
Now is the time.
Now's the time, okay. We would like to add a review of the complaints to the agenda. Also, remove the Tiny Township from the agenda because we don't feel that that is comparable to our township, and we feel that it's a very strong bylaw. Either remove it completely or add a few other township bylaws to compare that with. if possible.
Okay, so first of all, the review of the complaints. We would be able to tell you what the complaints are,
Yes.
but not who has issued the complaints.
Okay.
Okay, because of freedom of information.
Yeah, and also there are complaints that have been duplicated. So,
Yes.
you know, to find out what those are as well.
Yep. And as far as removing Tiny Township, that's up to the committee. It was put on there just for a sample, and we are aware that there are other samples out there. So if the committee chooses to ask us to look at other samples and send them out with the next agenda, then that's not a problem at all.
And we do have examples of other types of townships and bylaws that if you're interested, we could share that with you. as well.
Okay, so it's up to the committee
Yep.
then, if they want to add the other examples and whether or not you want to add the review of the complaints on this agenda. So the motion now is to approve the agenda as circulated. If you want it amended as Ms. Sterling has indicated, then we need to get someone to second her motion to amend it, and then we can proceed. Thank you.
Can there be discussion before there's a second? Because I just have a question. The complaints that you're referring to are those complaints that were made to the bylaw enforcement office?
Yes.
Yes, and so there's a record of those complaints?
Yes.
Okay.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
but apparently.
And I guess the second question is, I did notice the Tiny Township is on there, and I was just wondering how it arrived on the agenda.
So the mayor, the deputy mayor, and Councillor Booth attended the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in Toronto in January. And Tiny Township had given a presentation at that meeting. So that's was brought back from the mayor, and then the deputy mayor, as the member of this committee, had asked us to put it on the agenda.
Because I think given that our mandate is to actually look at other townships bylaws.
Yep.
I am open to reviewing this information regarding the Tiny Township, and I'm just wondering what are the other townships that you're suggesting that we take a look at?
We've actually, can I speak?
And when you say we, I was just not wondering who as we.
Well, we're for STRs. I am for STRs, and we have
So the group of that are on the committee.
not everybody, just.
No, I just was wondering who you meant when you said we.
Okay, so I and a few of our fellow STR
Okay.
owners. Townships that I feel that are comparable to ours would be Grey Highlands, Blue Water Municipality, and North Frontenac.
Could you say that again? I'm a slow writer at this time of night.
Great. We actually have prepared a little package
So you
for
have
everybody.
prepared?
I have
Yeah,
with
thank you.
my colleagues, yes.
Grey
Highlands,
Highlands.
Blue Water Municipality, and North Frontenac. And these townships are smaller than Tiny Township. Tiny Township has a population of 13,000. We have a population of 7.5. And so Grey Highlands, Blue Water are comparable. North Frontenac is quite a bit smaller. It has 2,000 population.
If I may, through you, I would like to, I think there was another one that was sent to us, and that was Gravenhurst. But that's a good point that you bring up about the population of the municipality. So that's a good one. The reason we did pick Tiny as one of them, the other one was Prince Edward County. They seem to have been able to work really well with bringing the STRs into the municipalities, and they seem to be they put on a very good presentation, and we got some questions answered through there. I think just in my thinking here, we could get bogged down with a lot. So if we maybe could come back at the next meeting with 3 or 4 that we could use as references. So that's just a discussion that it might expedite it.
I would be willing to amend the motion to accept accept the agenda with the amendment, but not to exclude the tiny township, to include it, but also to include from our own county as well. Because we do have STRs, for example, right in this, already got their STRs up and running and people signing up for it. So we have local municipalities we can also do.
Gerald, did you have a comment?
Yeah, but it's not to deal with, it's about the enforcement and you want to wait till the,
Yeah, we'll
till
do
this
the,
part's,
yes.
okay.
please. Okay.
Could
Yes,
I
ma'am.
ask a question? This is Valerie MacDonald speaking. Could I ask a question?
Certainly.
Thank you. When I look at this agenda before the discussion, I thought it was fairly heavy to look at things in detail in terms of the existing bylaw and the other references, etc. I'm wondering if there should be a separate meeting to look at other examples and maybe a separate meeting to look at bylaw enforcement, both process as well as the experience to date. I'm just thinking there's a lot of material here and we don't want to just go over it lightly, I'm sure.
Thank you for your comments. So the reason why we put as much on the agenda is because this is a new committee and we didn't know how familiar committee members were with our bylaw to start with. And so that's why we've put a lot of information on for you, but the committee can slow it down and take a meeting that you just discuss the different examples. And I would suggest probably it's better for you to take the samples that you've provided, and then maybe at your next meeting, have everybody had an opportunity to review it in detail, and then they can come forward with some suggestions. So Lisa, did you have?
I was just gonna comment that I feel like the tiny township bylaw is very biased towards a heavily regulated STR bylaw. And so, as Nicole had said, to add ones that are, this committee is supposed to be unbiased and to be working it out. And so I feel like it's really important that we have, if we're going to do this, I think it would be important to have maybe two. If you're going to have a heavily regulated one, to look at one that's much less regulated, as an example, as Nicole has stated. And then if you're going to add 4, then there should be 2 and 2 at least, so that there can be a more balanced, a more balanced view.
Okay. All right. If there isn't any other comment, then we'll take a vote on the amendment. So the amendment is to review the complaints and also to, I'm going to include Tiny Township, but also the ones that Nicole has brought forward. So that's Grey Highlands, Blue Water, North Frontenac, sorry. And then there was mention of Gravenhurst, Prince Edward County, and Brighton. So what we can, sorry, Daryl.
Sorry, my concern was dealing with review of the complaints, so I don't know if you need it before you do this amendment or not. I was just wondering if that's something that could be brought back to the next committee meeting, because we don't have that information, the bylaw department in front of us tonight.
Yes.
So I was hoping it could be something that, I don't mind providing it,
Mhm.
just if it could be brought back to the next meeting, so I could just see if it didn't get amended onto this agenda, that's all.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Is that,
Yep.
I guess before we vote on it, I guess the difficulty that I have with the proposed amendment right now is that I don't think that we can really discuss any other township other than Tiny, because we haven't had an
Right.
opportunity to review it.
correct.
So I would suggest that we review the Tiny Township because we've got it. We adjourn the issue of complaints to when they become available, as well as the other townships, so that all of the materials can be provided to all the committee members, so that it make better use of our time.
Yes, and so typically with any agenda that we put out, we usually put it out in advance so that it gives the committee members or council time to review the information, so that when you do come to the meeting, you're not spending time reviewing it. You've already reviewed it, and then people can make their decisions based on the comments that are made around the table. So,
Excuse me, Pat,
Yes.
would it be better then that we just suggest that we have the intention to review other municipalities as well at a future date? Because to me, it makes sense that we almost have a subcommittee of people who want to be willing to delve into some of the details of the different municipalities, bring forward the key points from each of them. Unbiased, of course, like bring it forward the way it is, right? So that might be a way of handling it going forward, but make it the intention to review others, not tonight.
Nicole?
Can I ask a question?
Just one
Um,
moment. Nancy, just in one moment, we have
Yeah.
Nicole.
I prepared 10 little packages, and in here there are a mention of all different townships as well. So if you allow me, I could give one to everybody and they can bring that home and have a look at. Gives you some things to help you go forward. And it also has our short-term rental presentation that we presented. Can't remember what date that was. And it has a few other things that might be of interest to everybody on this committee.
So I would think process wise, we probably would wait so that we can bring forward everything at once.
Okay.
But if you want to leave it with me, then we'll distribute it out. So,
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. So,
May
Dennis,
I
oh,
ask a question? I'm sorry.
just a minute. He had a comment, I think, before. Nancy?
Yeah, I was under the impression, I'm looking at Grit here, she's got, I think there's somebody sitting beside her. I asked if I could have other people in my family sit on this meeting, and I was told, no, we all had to be on committee. That's my first question, but I think the most important thing to me when I actually initially met with somebody on council about this new bylaw, and the first question I asked is, where did this bylaw come from? And I see that we're looking at tiny, and we're going to look at all the other, ideas here, but why can't our county, Alnwick, Haldimand, be unique and us write our own? Like it's to me, we just picked up something else, and it's affected people in many ways, negative and positive. So I see why we needed something, but at the same time, there's many issues where it's restricting people's property rights, and there's an impact on local economy. And Valerie, I understand that you're down on Merrill Road. Is it down on our road?
6108 Curtis Point Road. The road actually starts with a number, 6108 Curtis Point
So we're
Road.
1026, and our farm actually has the road, and we have the right of way. I actually have people in cottages that are digging parking spots on our farm property without permission, to make available, spots for these Airbnbs. But at the same time, I really see that there's a lack of alternatives. There's people that have to, rent out their properties to pay for, property taxes. It's almost like a discrimination to say that, you have to pay this permit fee, so you're gonna have to rent it out even more. And, there's garbage issues, and, there's so many community benefits for us to come up with a program that works for our township. But I just can't see copying another township as being the solution. I think that we have to look at what does our community need.
So the reason why this committee was established was so that it can look at what it wants to see in a bylaw and make a recommendation to council. And typically, whenever we create a bylaw, we start with samples that we have from neighboring municipalities, other municipalities that have created a bylaw, so that we can take the good and the bad and hopefully make the best.
Sure, but where did they come from? What I'm getting at is that I think we went for the easier route here when we had to look at maybe some of the noise violations and different things that were happening, and different issues around like the extra garbage and all that sort of thing. And, it's like we have to come together and come up with something that works best for our community.
And that's what this committee's mandate is.
I hear
Valerie,
you.
comment?
Yes, just one comment before I go to my question, and that is, you asked where this bylaw came from, and there was a lot of consultation. People We'll call them for and against, and down the middle, a council took all of that into consideration, worked with staff and produced a bylaw. So we actually have a bylaw in place right now, but at the time it was passed, council said, let's look at it in a year. And obviously the new council has followed through on that. But my question is, and again, this follows your comments, there is a lot of information here that we need to look at to do the best job of putting together both economic benefits as well as protections. And so I'm wondering, how many meetings are we looking at? Will they be weekly from now till the end of April? Can we divide up the work, so that we cover all of the issues that everyone seems to be raising in addition to what we have already on the agenda? And maybe somebody could ask me or answer about the number of meetings that are envisioned to reach the conclusion that council wants.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. We need to deal with the motion. Grid, is it pertaining to the motion?
Yes, it is. Well, it's just because Nancy addressed that there was someone sitting beside me. Nancy, I just want to assure you that I am in council chambers at the meeting, and the gentleman beside me, I've met him the first time tonight. His name is Jamie, and he's on the committee as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So that we will involve in the bylaw, their own bylaw, right?
Yes. Okay, so the motion then is to review other bylaws and review the complaints. Okay, so can I have a vote on that? So it was moved by Nancy, or sorry, it was moved by Nicole and it was seconded by Grit. So,
It was second. I moved.
well, actually, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You can hold it.
No, you can take it.
I don't care. All in favor of the motion to look at other bylaws and to look at the complaints? Okay, so that's carried. And then the agenda as amended, then it was moved by Grit and seconded by Mike as amended. Everybody in favor then? Okay, carried. Okay, the next is the selection of a chair. So is there anybody who would like to put their name forward as the chair of the committee?
Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. Come on, anyway.
I have anybody else that wants to be chair of the committee?
I would nominate Grit. If she would accept that.
Rick, did you respond to that?
Sure, I'll accept.
Anyone else? Well, yep. Anyone else? It is. Thanks, guys. I went through one election recently. All right. So, I'll just read the names and then you put up yay or nay. So, all in favor for Stephen? Yes, Colleen, you're gonna ask the question?
That's me.
This is Stephen here. Sorry, Steve Lawson.
Okay.
Yes. Any other votes? Okay. That it? Okay, Mike Ainsworth. Yes, of course you can. You could too. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Any votes for Mike Ainsworth? Any other votes?
Nancy.
Okay. All right. Grit. Any votes for Grit? John.
I got my
Sorry.
hand up.
Okay. Any other ones? Yep. And Nicole. Okay, so we have a tie with Mike and Grit. So do it again. All in favor of Mike?
Yeah.
Yep. And all in favor of Britt then? Okay, so, Mike, everyone vote.
Landslide.
Landslide.
Yeah. Almost lost my hair over that.
All right, so,
Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, everybody. It's actually pretty good to have 4 people.
Okay, so if I can just get a motion to appoint Mike Ainsworth as the chair, then I will take that vote and then I'll turn it over to him. Britt? Okay, all in favor? Carried. You now have the chair.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. So I guess we'll move along with the policy review and the terms of reference. Everybody's got a copy in front of them.
Oh, terms of reference and then we can talk about the bylaws.
Does anybody need a copy? I can use my computer.
Yeah. So has everybody have had a chance to read the terms of reference, and do they have anything they want to add or delete on that terms of reference?
Could I ask for a point of clarification, Mr. Chair?
Yes, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one here that says to view short-term rentals as an opportunity for economic development. And I just wondered how that would be dealt with in relationship to, say, resorts and other accommodation currently in the township.
Well, I would say they have they would have like a equal line with the other business that we have in the township when it comes to tourism and the economic spin-off. You know, especially, I mean, when people are coming in out of town, I mean, usually the second thing they do is start spending money. So I think it is, I think it's quite valuable for our township.
Thank you.
Anything else from Colleen?
Yeah, just a clarification. If the rule says that it is the role is to advise on this council and staff with developing a bylaw to address short-term rentals. And so I guess the question is, I know there's an existing bylaw. So is town council asking us to develop a brand new bylaw or to talk about the existing bylaw and possible amendments and enforcing the same?
Yes, I believe that this committee is to put together a new bylaw or work the existing bylaw that we have and bring recommendations back to the council.
So you said that you think that council wants us to either look at amending the bylaw or bringing a new bylaw?
Well, I would say amending it, because I think what we have now needs to be changed. So we need to bring them back, basically a new bylaw. So, and when I say that, I'm, yes,
I
yeah.
just wanted to clarify that, because when you read that, it looks like we're coming up with a brand new bylaw. So I just wanted to make it clear, there's an existing bylaw and council is asking for the committee to give their advice as to possible amendments of the existing bylaw. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Grit?
I think to help clarify, back when this bylaw was originally passed, the intention was never for it to stay in place permanently. It was established so that the township could get a handle on the existing STRs and get them licensed and on board and deal with the, what I will refer to as the problem children that are out there, and get a grip on that, because as you alluded to, this is a small township, and so resources are also scarce. And to just allow it to be wide open at this point would be impossible for the township to try to control. And if I'm not correct, I know that our planner and our bylaw officer here and the building official will be able to clarify that. But it was never meant to be permanent, but it's how to deal with where it should be going forward from now. So not that we're going to come up with a whole new bylaw. No, I believe it would be to make appropriate amendments along the way.
Mike,
Okay, Nicole?
question. In the report, it says that there were 51 short-term rentals found and identified, and they were all sent the packages. So does that mean there was 51 packages sent out? Because we received one, but a lot of people that I know that run STRs did not receive a package. So was there 51 packages sent out? That would be interesting to know.
Could I ask Yolanda?
Yeah. Okay, so I was the one that prepared the packages and sent them out. I based that on the research that I conducted online. So I went onto the Airbnb and Vrbo websites to find the properties within our township that were actually listed online. Many of them probably are not listed online, and I understand that, but we don't have people forthcoming in the township telling the township that they're short-term rentals. So in order to track them down, I had to do a little private investigation myself, trying to find the owners, the addresses and that kind of thing, because that was not visible on these websites as well. So in doing that, I was able to track down 51 in our township. That's not to say there's probably a lot more in our township that have not been contacted.
But you did send out 51.
51 packages went out, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question related
Go
to
ahead,
this.
Steve.
Yeah, you know, when I first heard about this, it was actually through somebody in my neighborhood that mentioned it. I looked it up myself and read through it a few months ago. I know it's just very, very new. It looks like it was passed, I think, in August or July or something like that of last year. Has there been, like, I know somebody mentioned something about complaints, but has there been any feedback from any of the township residents? And second of all, have we actually ever, has any licenses been issued to anybody so far, or are we still in that phase of collecting applications and then sending out applications? I'm just trying to get a grasp of where we stand right now. And I understand where we're trying to get to. So we have something in place. We're really not happy with the way it is right now. We're looking to get people together. That's why the committee's here. But where are we right now? I'm trying to get like a snapshot of where we are like right now as we sit here today.
Okay.
So I can answer a little bit of that for you. So as far as feedback goes, like with any bylaw, we get feedback from both negative and positive. You know, we will get feedback from the complainant, and we'll get feedback from the person that's being complained at, I guess, so for lack of better words. So yeah, there has been some feedback, and we can provide that if we can with our at the next agenda when we do provide the information on the complaints. As far as licensing goes, again, this is the clerk's department does look after that. My department is to deal with the bylaw end of it afterwards, but I believe we have received 3 packages back, if I'm not mistaken, 4 now, back out of the 52 that were sent out. So typically, I guess, I'm not sure if Yolanda has sent out more letters at this point just to inform them, or if we've just sent out the first set of packages. So we're still, because it's new, it's and the licensing is new, it's still kind of in the first stages of in the process for license.
Okay, thank you.
Colleen?
Just to follow up on that, so are you saying that 51 packages were sent out for SDRs to be licensed? And when were they sent out and only 4 have come back? So are you saying that since the bylaw went into effect summertime or spring, that there's 4 licensed SDRs?
I don't,
Or any license, yeah.
I don't believe any of the licenses have been fulfilled yet. But Yolanda can correct me if I'm wrong. We sent out when did you send out the STR licensing package?
Okay, so the bylaw was passed in May, closer to the end of May. I believe the list that we had compiled took some time, so that took a month or two to compile the information. So I do believe that packages were sent out roughly October, I'm gonna say. It could have been September. And we didn't receive any feedback from anybody during that time till the end of the year. So nothing came back. So we were wondering, okay, did we get it to the right places? I think what people were doing, this is just my opinion, but I think people, because it was closer to the end of the year, were probably waiting until the following year to actually apply for a license. So we have received 4 applications and they have been coming in since the beginning of January. So I know 2 of them were received in January, but again, with those packages, we're not getting all the information we need to process these packages at once. People are trickling in information, so it's taking weeks to compile the information for these packages. And we review them, and if we know there's missing information, we advise people and they provide us with that missing information. So to date, there have been no licenses issued. There was 1 package actually that was looking very promising and very close to having a license issued. But other than that, the other ones are still providing us with information that is outstanding.
So currently there are no licensed SDRs.
So if I can just try to keep everybody on track, if we can just kind of focus on the terms of reference, all great questions though. But those will probably come up at a later date, maybe with Daryl's report and stuff. Grit?
This kind of actually does still refer to the terms of reference, because why are we here in the first place? And Steve Lawson referred to how did this come about? Well, over the past 2 years, there's been quite a lot going on. There's even a big public meeting during the pandemic where 60 residents came from South Alma-Calderman and North Alma-Calderman and met up in Roseneath. And it was a big public meeting and everyone wore masks and it was laying everything out that was going on. So there's a whole lot of work and preparation, not to mention the extensive work that our planner put in, putting together the bylaw in the first place, researching it. And it was all brought to council over several meetings. So this has been in the public domain for quite a long time already.
I just asked one sec. I just want to ask Jennifer if she can add to this. Then if we're going to talk about how we got to this point.
Sure, I'll just give a really quick overview of how the municipality came to have a short-term rental accommodation bylaw. In 2020, 2021, council had, 2022, council received a number of complaints regarding short-term rental accommodations in the municipality. Based on that, they directed staff to look at options on how to deal with short-term rentals. A number of options have been presented to council at a variety of council meetings. There's a number of reports that are available. I can provide them, and a number of options were given to council with respect to regulation, how they can be dealt with. A public meeting was held, which Grit alluded to or talked about. It was in Roseneath. It was advertised on the municipal public consultation. What do we call that? Website. Let's talk Alma-Calderman, I believe. There were a number of people that were there. Complaints were received. I believe at that point, most of the public consultation was with people that had negative experiences with short-term rentals. Council at the day was provided with a number of options, from regulation to permitting them in somebody's primary dwelling to not doing anything with them. And at the end of the day, council opted for the most strict option that was presented, or they were asked for an almost prohibition on short-term rentals. in consultation with the municipal solicitor, a total ban on short-term rental accommodations is not appropriate because in some zones, there would be no negative impact. In say the Hamlet commercial zone, it would be a compatible use with surrounding land uses. So there is no incompatibility. At the end of the day, they ended up passing both a zoning bylaw amendment and a licensing bylaw that would regulate short-term rental accommodations, prohibiting short-term rental accommodations in most zones except for the commercial zones. So that's where we are right now. And then they passed a companion licensing agreement or licensing bylaw under the Municipal Act. And that's the framework that we have right now. And they did say at the time that we'll revisit this and see how it goes. And so that's what this committee is doing. And whether the revisiting the existing bylaw is a major rehabbing of it, or whether it's a minor tweaks, and that's up to this committee to decide. But there was an extensive public consultation process with the original bylaw that was passed. I think it was in effect on May 19th of last year. And there was a lot of public consultation during that. So if they didn't pass a bylaw blindly.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Sorry.
Alicia?
I just would like to, I think it's important, given what Jennifer and Grit have put forth to the committee, from the other side of that, I'd like to, have some input on that, and in saying that they have both said that there was a lot of public consultation, and that it was shared on the Let's Talk on Calderman. I own property here and I've lived here. I didn't know what Let's Talk was until you just mentioned it. So for someone that is pro short-term rental, the fact if that was the only place that it was posted for people that were pro short-term rental, I feel like was a bit of a bias to start with. Second of all, you had said that there was a meeting and in Rice Lake area, which is, that's all well and good. The majority of the people that showed up there were obviously against because they knew that it was happening. There was also delegations. So again, a little bit unfair because I'm sure that council knows, and maybe a few others here, that there have been 3 delegations to council for being upset about this short-term rental, and also people that are for short-term rentals. Nicole made a presentation. There was a huge showing of people that were for short-term rental in that delegation. And so I feel like that bylaw was completely one-sided. There was no consultation from anyone that I know of that was for short-term rental in our group, in a group that I belong to. That's all for short-term rental, which is a business advocacy group. Nobody in that group knew about those meetings, the public consultation or anything like that. So that's just a bit of background from our position.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. And that's why, again, this committee is here and why we got people for and against and that are neutral. We people in the audience are part of this here, and I'm sure there's another 60 people out there that are probably watching and listening and see what we come up with. But this committee will make it fair, I'm hoping, and that we got a lot of good people around this table to put something together for us for this municipality. Was it Colleen? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Jamie?
I was just gonna add on the business advocacy group. I think that's part of where I would like to come into play to say, yes, there is a means to have short-term rentals, but it is part of a business, and that it should be some sort of regulations to have those within the community. And, they do play a big part in bringing, money into the community. And I think that that's possible with having the correct information, because some of the owners don't know rural residential homes and how to take care of those. And when you're having so many groups through at a time, that can pose a problem, especially to neighboring homes.
Yeah, I don't think that anybody in here would dispute that we are a municipality that has a lot to offer people.
Correct.
Fishing, hunting, snowmobiling, ATVing, hiking, bicycling, kayaking. Where are all those people going to stay? We don't have motels. So the short-term rentals is a great thing to have. And we just need to get this review done. Anybody
I'd like-
else? Or-
Yes, I'd like to, number 7 on meeting schedules and location. I know that I'm harping on the meeting schedule, but I think the discussion so far has shown that there's a lot of material that we need to look at in detail and be able to talk about the pros and cons so that we come up with something that the committee and hopefully council and the township will feel is addressing everyone's concerns and issues and rights. And so I'm quite prepared to meet weekly. I don't know how but anybody else feels about that. I am quite prepared to take on a particular subject matter to research or provide a presentation on if that's required. But April 30 is a very short time away to deal with something that's very significant, I think. And so I'm just wondering, number 7, it says meeting schedules. If we could address that, if the chair or maybe because the deputy mayor has also been part of the council discussions, maybe there was a feel for how intensively we would work on this project.
Thanks, Valerie. Yeah, and we will definitely cross that here in the next couple of minutes when we get to it and see where our next direction is. Thank you. Anything else on the terms of reference?
Just
Nicole?
one more question. At the meeting in Roseneath, do we know how many people attended that meeting before they passed the bylaw?
We do have a listing. I don't know the number offhand. I'd probably say between 40 and 50-ish.
And how many attended our presentation of the 4,
But that's not
60 or 70? So
Yeah, I'm staff. I'm neutral.
I know
Council
that. I know.
asked me to prepare a bylaw. I prepare a bylaw.
yeah.
That's what I did.
Mhm.
The presentation that you had presented to council,
Mhm.
I think it was a month or 2 ago,
Mhm.
that took place after they'd already passed
Yeah.
the bylaw. So
Yeah.
they passed the bylaw in
Mhm.
May based on the
As-
information that they had at that May 2022 they had at that
Mhm.
time. I don't know whether it would be a comparable number or not. I don't have the I can't
Mhm.
remember how many people came with you, how many people were there. I attended both meetings. I
Mhm.
was at them both. They were both well attended. There may have been a few more in Roseneath, and the reason the meeting was held in Roseneath was because that was the venue that the municipality had that was large enough to accommodate the number of people that we were anticipating.
Mhm.
It was not to make it a northern biased meeting at all.
No.
It was the venue that we had available within our municipality to accommodate the number of people that were anticipated.
Thank you.
Joan?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to get back to what Valerie has said, she brings up some really good points. We didn't want the ad hoc committee, as speaking through council now, we didn't want it to be a prolonged. We thought maybe 4 or 5 meetings might do it, that we may be gonna need 6. But with the direction that I can see kind of coming through here. So everybody has a voice, it might be a good idea to break down the meetings, maybe to look at the other bylaws that are in existence. And everybody does their homework and looks at them. And that would take up a meeting. And if everyone, there's gonna be something positive out of every bylaw that we see. So, sorry. So that might be one way of doing it, is to break it down into quadrants, what we if we do 4 or 5 meetings or 6 meetings. I do think one meeting should speak directly with the pros and cons of other bylaws. And I leave it to the committee to see what they would think would be the next step to go through. Maybe we need to look at our bylaw and come up with what we think we would like to see, what we have got right and things that we would like to change in it. So I think if we stay focused on what we want to do here, that we shouldn't need more than 4 or 5 meetings to complete this. But again, that's open for discussion as we get through this.
Okay, and you know, to add to that, we do have an option that we can extend the time if we need to. So I don't think we're nailed to the floor on this one. But if we need to get something done, need to take a little more time, I'm sure we get an avenue that we can do that. And just to, okay, so everybody okay on the terms of reference? Can I have a motion to accept? Grit, another comment?
I think I think it's really important that we establish a good tone for this committee to work with going forward. This isn't about how many are against or how many are for. It's what are we going to be able to do to come up with to make it work so that residents who are in residential zones and are being bombarded with real problems, they need to be looked after. Those of you who have short-term rentals that are out in the bucolic countryside and it's wonderful and beautiful and people get to come from the city and listen to the farm sounds and whatever else, I think that's fantastic. And that's not bothering anyone. And if they yell and scream out in the middle of a field somewhere, it's not going to bother other people when you have people right next door to families that live here permanently. That's where all of this is stemming from. So it's just a basic mutual respect and understanding of how we can work through to get to where we need to be for this township. So not against or for, it's what can we do?
That's a great point, Grit. Great point. And you know, I think everybody sitting at this committee has to be here to put this bylaw together. No one should be here trying to run anybody out of the room. And so that's why we're here. Okay, and if everybody understands that and we're working towards the goal, then we should all try to meet that goal. And yes, we have to respect our neighbors. That's got to be part of it. And also, if we hadn't had those 4 or 5 places where we've had complaints, we might even not be here tonight. You know, so you know, if we've got 51 out there and we got 5 bad ones, it's a pretty good percentage. So we just need to tweak things to start respecting our neighbors. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the term of reference?
Second.
Okay, moved by Joan, seconded by Steve. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, on to the review of the current short-term rentals accommodation bylaw. Yeah. That one? No. 14. So I'll have a motion to accept it. We have a motion to accept it. And we'll have a chat. So just, then we'll put it on the floor for chat. So a motion to accept the bylaw. Or sorry, to review the bylaw. So, sorry, Grit, a motion, and Jamie, a second. Okay. Up for discussion. Okay, Alicia?
So obviously I'm very pro a short-term rental, and I agree that there are hosts running short-term rentals that are providing or their guests are providing an issue to their neighbors. So I completely understand that. My problem with the bylaw, the existing bylaw, number one is that there's no provision for any new short-term rentals. So that's number one. But number two is that it's my feeling that there isn't, well, there should be a correlation between long-term rental and short-term rental. And so why are short-term rentals being regulated with a bylaw, but long-term rentals are not? And so I think that I think that a long-term rental actually provides more risk to the owner of the property and to the neighbors. Because if something happens that you have a bad, if you have a bad renter who isn't paying attention to property maintenance, who isn't paying attention, they're noisy. The owner has very little rights or has to go through the landlord tenant board to get rid of that tenant, which is very costly. It's very labor intensive. And so I'm not sure why we can have a short-term rental bylaw without including a bylaw for long-term rental, which is obviously very onerous in itself. But why have one for short-term rental where there isn't one for a long-term rental?
Colleen, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead, Gret. Sorry, Colleen.
Okay, this was one of the concerns I did have, because I saw that in the terms of reference, the reference to long-term rentals need to be considered as well. I do not believe that we should be combining long-term rentals in the same breath as short-term rentals, because long-term rentals are housing for people to have a roof over their head to live in. Short-term rentals are for tourism, for work accommodation if someone has to be somewhere for short-term accommodation, but it's not living for families and people. Two separate things entirely. One is a business, one is housing.
Sorry. Colleen?
And I do believe that long-term rentals are governed by the Landlord Tenant Act, and that's why it would be appropriate for a bylaw to deal with long-term rentals. Because as President pointed out, the Landlord Tenant Act provides a framework for long-term rentals. And I think that's the problem with short-term rentals, is that there is no framework or any governance of them. And that's why municipalities have had to come up with bylaws in order to deal with short-term rentals, because a lot of people, some people who own properties, especially in bigger jurisdictions, have found, I understand, it easier and more profitable for them to have short-term rentals, because number one, they can make more money renting per night as opposed to per month, and they can get around the Landlord Tenant Act provisions.
Yeah, you're both right. Exactly. Nicole?
Short-term rentals, long-term rentals are governed by the Landlord Tenant Act, but we are governed, if you are a part of Airbnb or Vrbo or HipCamp or whatever platform you choose to use to rent out your short-term rentals, they govern what we do. So they are protecting us and they are protecting the renters as well. And they're really, really good at keeping everything, safe and making sure everybody behaves, and they do, protect both parties.
Okay.
But the municipality does need to have a handle on this land use, so I think we would agree on that, right? The municipality needs that control, not an outside housing agency or Airbnb, Vrbo or whatever.
Yolanda, do we have a better option of identifying the people on Zoom? Like a hands up somewhere? So I don't miss them?
There is a hands up symbol that they can push on their Zoom platform that they're on. So if you go to the bottom, you can raise your hand and you'll see a little hand in the corner of their video. Neil. Neil is actually, I believe, an attending resident. But yeah, Val, I can see your hand up as well. So yeah.
I can use that.
That little icon there.
Yes, I will use that.
The only thing I can offer.
Could Mike see it? I've just raised it.
Yeah, go ahead, Valerie. Yeah.
No, I was just doing the example. I'm sorry, I had just said.
Okay. Don't forget to take your hand down.
Okay, there, it's gone.
Just click it. Yeah, just click it again. Okay. Alicia.
So the complaints that were coming in from, with respect to short-term rentals, and maybe Daryl can answer this, and were they, I think the majority of them were noise over weekends is what I read in a report. And so do we not already, does Alnwick Haldeman not already have bylaws in place to deal with noise, to deal with property standards? I'm not sure what other complaints were, but if those bylaws are already in place, why does a heavy-handed short-term rental bylaw need to be added to the township if those are already in place to handle those complaints?
So yeah, I can answer a little bit of that. Yes, some of the complaints that came in were dealing with noise, partying like late hours and different things. I think, you know, the idea of the short-term rental bylaw, and again, we're neutral here, we're staff workers. Council put this in place, so it's something that we had to go and try to just educate people on and deal with it. It was a new bylaw, and I guess, you know, dealing with it, you're correct. There is other bylaws that deal with noise, and what's the word I guess I'm looking for? I don't know how to answer that any better other at this point, telling you that, yeah, most of the complaints we're dealing with some noise issues. Yes.
Is there a fireworks bylaw as well, Daryl?
There is a fireworks bylaw dealt with through the fire department. Yes.
So there's a fireworks bylaw, so if there's a fire, actual burn
There's a burn
bylaw, and there's a noise bylaw. So those three bylaws, you know, probably would take care of, I'm guessing, I don't know, the majority of what maybe those complaints were towards short-term rentals, which is why the short-term rental bylaw was put in place.
So again, we don't have that information in front of us right here, but that will be at the, you know, what the complaints were and dealing with at the next meeting for you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna go to Grid here.
So while we do have those bylaws in place, the bottom line is that a short-term rental is a business. And there has to be regulations around a business from a safety perspective. And the complaints go way beyond just noise. There's trespassing. There's threatening of the homeowners, where people have literally sat on people's property and said, you can't make me go. I have the right to be here. It should have been police involvement at the time. So the complaints were a lot more serious than just noise. I have personally met with all of these residents from North and South, and you talk Chubb Point, talk North Shore, talk Curtis Point. And yeah, it's an issue. It's more than just noise, a lot more. One house even doesn't have an operating well. There's not enough water, and the water truck on one weekend had to come 3 times because there were so many people. There's overcrowding. The septic systems aren't designed for that. So that's why these bylaws are being put in place. So there's a lot more involved than just saying, let's have an STR. It can't just be unregulated. You can't have 15 people come in and be in a house that's only meant to accommodate 8 or 4.
Colleen?
I was just gonna say, I don't think that we're here to discuss whether there should be a bylaw. I think we're here to discuss how we should deal with existing bylaws. So I think maybe we might want to focus on looking at the bylaw and talking about whether there should be any changes rather than discussing whether any other bylaws that have nothing to do with SDRs would satisfy any complaints, because we know that there's been complaints. We don't have the details of the complaints, but town council decided to create a bylaw, and now the new council is asking for our advice in regard to any changes that may be necessary for the bylaw. So I think it might be helpful and more cost efficient in terms of our time to try to focus on dealing with the bylaw, because that's what we're supposed to do. I think.
So
Yeah, no,
Mike, sorry, I don't mean to dominate if I can. I have a positive suggestion to this. This is something I've been thinking about. The reason the bylaw is as it is right now is because the township has 51 packages out there for STRs to come and become licensed. They haven't. So I think what we need to do is help this council find a way to get those STRs licensed and prove that this can operate and that the enforcement can follow through based on that. And at that point in time, we could really consider then the possibility of opening up for more STRs, but you've also got to limit it because of the size of this township. And I don't mean area size, I mean the population size and where the density is. So.
Okay, I want to take Nancy on Zoom.
Thank you. Grit's actually she's been speaking the words out of my mouth. But at the same time, I'm looking at, so there's 51 packages that were sent out. We couldn't send ours in because our property was not eligible for the permit. So I would send it in. I was the first person to have insurance up there and to make sure that everything was 5-star and do whatever we could. And again, I'm on the other fence of all of the cottages down on 1026 Merrill Road that are digging parking spots on my farm property with excavators and not asking permission. And I do hear the noise down there. So I would love to come up with a solution, but again, Grit she was answering a lot of my questions as I was holding my hand up. And again, you know, principal residents, there's lots of people down there. There's so many people that I know in the township that are not going to send in the paperwork for the permit because they have private renters. And so what are they going to be fined? Is there going to be more, you know, time involved, you know, like having enforcement challenges when we're not dealing with the current bylaw problems of the noise or fireworks or whatever it is? Like, how many complaints are there to shut down so many other people that are maybe trying to pay their taxes over the summer with private renters? So, you know, I find this bylaw, it's very harsh and it doesn't fit our community. But at the same time, I'm on both sides of the fence here. I have issues with dealing with people that I know, but at the same time, I have a very serene spot that people they come to because they just found out they're dying of cancer. I've had people fly in from Cairo. You know, I have a very special place, but it doesn't fit into what the bylaw requirements are. So it happens to be a tent it's a glamping tent on a very serene property. So it's not a principal residence. It doesn't qualify as a dwelling, although it would in some other states in the United States. And I find this frustrating. And as I said, there's many enforcement challenges that we have in front of us. Spring's close and you've got 4 applications in. So people they might think it's a cash grab. They may not want to pay the permit fee every year. That might, you know, they may have to rent out their property more to pay that permit fee because there's, you know, certain people have specific incomes and they own a cottage and they have to pay their taxes and cover their, you know, we've got inflation that we're dealing with. So I don't know how this is going to happen with people actually putting in their paying this permit fee. Maybe we have to lower the permit fee.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Colin, you had something else to say?
I was just going to respond to Rick's comments, and I quite agree with them. I think that right now there's a bylaw in place, and it's a little concerning that 51 packages went out and only 4 have come back. That in itself tells me that there's a lack of concern on the part of some of these short-term rental businesses. So we're having a problem with getting license information in and getting things licensed. I'm shocked, quite frankly, that we have no licensed STRs currently, given that the bylaw was passed in May. So I have a question in regard to how are the current short-term rentals that currently would be in violation of the current bylaw, are the bylaw enforcement officers going out and knocking on the door and saying, hey, you're operating a short-term rental, you're in violation of the bylaw, stop doing it, number one, or if you're not in violation of it, have you been licensed? Because it seems to me, based on what I just heard, in terms of the 51 packages and only 4 returns, that, and we're now in March, that's 5 months for people to send in the packages, and if they haven't done it, that's a little concerning. If they're not even prepared to fill out the packages and get licensed, I think that's a big concern. So I was just wondering if somebody can address the issue of following up with short-term rentals or licensing or enforcement.
So at this time, we have not gone out and knocked on any doors with enforcement. There has been a report brought to council about how many license packages have gone out and how many we receive back in. And the bylaw department just after that takes council's direction on which way they would like to take it from there for further enforcement for that licensing.
So there's no enforcement right now at all.
So the enforcement end of it is waiting for the packages that have gone out and a letter stating that they need to be a licensed STR.
And so for those that haven't received a package, then they are just sort of in limbo, I guess, from the townships.
For when you say those that haven't received a package, what do you, I'm not certain.
I suspect there are many more than 51 Airbnbs that are operating. Because I just know from my own looking in my own area that there are new places that have come online just in the last couple of weeks, and if the packages went out in October, there are probably more operating. So I'm just wondering what
So
mechanism
with-
is in place to sort of deal with new short-term
So,
rental operators.
As most of our bylaws are done on a complaint basis, so we maybe have not received a complaint with those ones or knowledge of them, so no, the bylaw department has not gone out to search them out that way at all.
So if there's a complaint that a short-term rental unit is being operated and the person may suspect that they don't have a license or they're not supposed to be operating, the mechanism is for them to make a complaint.
The mechanism is to make a complaint. There's an online complaints and concerns form. All of our residents are allowed to fill that out or are welcome to fill them out. And we take it into a file and then we do an investigation on the place like we do with all our bylaws.
Now, are there bylaw enforcement officers to handle the enforcement and the licensing of short-term rentals?
Right now, this township has a chief building official and a bylaw enforcement officer in a dual role. And we have a deputy fire chief and a bylaw enforcement officer in a dual role. So that's what we have for bylaw enforcement.
So given that that's your role for the chief bylaw.
I'm the chief building official and bylaw enforcement officer, and we have another part-time deputy fire chief and bylaw enforcement officer.
So in your experience and your review of the current bylaw, do you have enough staff to handle the enforcement of the bylaw?
That's well, it's a good question. I don't think the bylaw has been here long enough for us to know whether we have enough staff or not.
Okay, I'm gonna take Nicole.
The bylaw is quite unreasonable and very aggressive. That's probably why not many people have sent and asked for their licenses yet. We did ask for a moratorium to the bylaw, and that did not happen. So I'm guessing that everybody is waiting to see how this pans out, to see if we can amend the bylaw to make it more reasonable for everybody to run an SDR in this township.
I just want to say one thing and then I'll take Grit and then Nancy. Sorry, Valerie. But I just want to say one thing while we got Pat and Daryl here. If we could explain the importance of why we have some of these rules in the bylaws. So septics and inspections and some of those things that where it puts the township if we don't have that stuff.
So some of the real rules dealing with the current bylaw that's in place. One of them is parking. For instance, we want to make sure that there's enough parking at the unit or the dwelling to make sure we don't have people parking up and down the road to interfere with for emergency service and stuff. Another rule in place is to deal with fire inspections. You want to make sure if it's a short-term rental and the people are coming in, that it has its fire safety issues, smoke alarms and stuff that the fire department requires of that in that nature. The septic, I mean, most dwellings, if it was a new dwelling, your septic is done per occupancy load, so it's 2 people per bedroom, and that's what your septic design is done off of. So you want to make sure that that septic's not being overloaded. If a short-term rental is bringing in 14 or 15 guests for the weekends or for the time they're there, you want to make sure that the septic is going to handle that. So those are generally, a lot of the rules why they are in place for those inspections.
Okay. I'm going to take Valerie up. Valerie?
Thank you. So one of the comments was on I'm sorry, I've lost the word, the complaints being filed. And I can tell you that complaints have been filed by several people along 6108 Curtis Point Road, which is the private road along Rice Lake. And those issues that the bylaw officer has just talked about, which is inspections to see that fire safety is taken into account, building safety, septic, especially on the lake. You don't want large numbers of people overloading the septic system, people from out of town who won't understand that a holding tank or a septic system, if it is overloaded, will just flow into Lake Ontario. But there are problems with when you register a complaint, being able to actually get the owner. Some of the people who are sitting at the table, it sounds like you're on site, and if there was a complaint, the bylaw officer could deal with you quite directly. I live next to one owned by a corporation that owns about 100 throughout Ontario. And I know that the bylaw officer and the fire department have had trouble getting in touch with them to deal with complaints. So that's a reality out there that I think that we should try in whatever changes we make to the bylaw to address, because we need to enable the staff to be able to regulate these commercial properties in such a way that they get the money so that they can pay the staff to go out and do the inspections and the necessary enforcement, so that it does become economically viable while protecting people's property rights.
Great.
Right, and that brings me to the near and dear to my heart. I've been following the township's budget process for 13 years. And it was interesting to note that there was no revenues built into this year's budget for STRs, which means they weren't expecting to get license money in. Well, it's not up to the taxpayers to be paying for enforcement of STRs that want to just operate without any parameters or rules or regulations. And the fees must be collected in order to handle those problems and make sure they're safe and all the rest of it. So in order for the bylaw department to be able to get staff to be able to focus on the short-term rentals and getting that moving, they need to have the revenue coming in, because it should be revenue neutral. It should not be costing the existing taxpayers for new businesses that want to run and operate in this township.
Okay, Alicia, and then
I think just to address the why we haven't got any licenses, why the township hasn't gotten any licenses in, is I agree with Nicole that I think that a lot of current short-term operators probably feel like it's like the bylaw is heavy-handed, and it's a lot of money, and there's a lot of it's very heavily regulated. But I think maybe most of us would agree that the short-term rentals are good and they're necessary in the community to promote tourism, to have a place for traveling skilled trades like CN and Hydro One and people like that, maybe that need a place to go. Also to accommodate the emergency services that we had over Christmas holidays. I mean, Terry Carruthers had how many people staying at the Lassen Ladle because people didn't have, there wasn't enough places to stay. There's no hotels. Not everyone can, afford to maybe go to St. Anne's or Whispering Springs or pretty much, or maybe some resorts out onto Rice Lake. So I think it's important that we have them. And if the bylaw is heavily regulated, there's a good chance that you're going to lose a lot of them in the township, which I think is not good for our township. I think we do need to promote tourism. As you said, the ATV trail, the snowmobile club, all of those people need places to stay when they come to the area, and they're just simply not going to come if there isn't places to stay. So anyways, I think that that's important. I also, Grit is talking about, having to have the money to regulate or for the bylaw enforcement to go out, and it shouldn't come out of the taxpayers' pockets. I don't disagree that bylaw enforcement specifically for short-term rentals should come out of taxpayers, but bylaw enforcement is there. And I don't think that there have been enough complaints, unless Daryl can, when we come to the next meeting, show that there's such a huge influx of short-term rental complaints from a bylaw perspective that I don't think there's enough evidence that there's, that it's costing the taxpayers a huge amount of money. I also think that it's important to note that any home-based business is a similar operating in a similar manner as a short-term rental operator is. They're operating a business out of their home. They are, whether it's a massage therapist or a hairdresser or any of those, and they're not being regulated with heavy fees and inspections all the time either. So.
Okay, great point, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm just, I'm listening to everything, and it seems like we're sitting right now at about just under an 8% compliance rate, if you want to call that, people that are returning applications. I looked at the application myself, and I looked at the requirements myself, and then there's a lot of stuff in there about various types of inspections. I think maybe, we got to figure out a way to get to people and give them notice and give them something that they can look at, and they can kind of like a checklist or something. I see I need to get an electrical inspection. So if I call an electrician and say, hey, I need an electrical inspection, they're going to want to know, well, what do you want me to inspect? What do I like, what is it you want? What is it we want people to show? I've stayed at lots of Airbnbs throughout the world with my wife, and some of them are very shaky, some are very suspicious, and some of them are very I don't know how safe this place is. And I think we all here agree that we need some sort of regulation. We need some sort of way to make sure that we're not having septic tanks overflowing or fires starting or loud disruptive parties. But I think we have a mixture of maybe an infrastructure issue, a staffing issue, and just obviously nobody's complying. At least I know it's only the beginning of March, but 4 out of 51 or 52 or whatever it is like I said, under 8%. So I really think we got a lot of issues to deal with on top of just the actual bylaw itself. And finding a way to get out to people and telling them, hey, this is the new law. This is what you have to do to comply. This is where you got to go and what you need to do. So.
Okay, Grit, but then I just want to say it's like 8:30. But I'm going to let you, but I just want us to think about what time we want to close and then carry on with the rest of it, and maybe come up with a couple items that we need to come back on for the next. So go ahead.
The
Grit.
motion that's on the floor is
Yeah.
to review the existing bylaw. And to me, that sounds like we're going to have to start there because we're talking in such upper areas and at a high level, and we're not getting down to the basics. So unless we start to review the bylaw, that's where we have to start because
Yeah.
that's what's in place. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. We got to work with it and take out the nuts and bolts that we don't want and put in the nuts and bolts that we do.
Okay, Daryl.
Through you, Mr. Chair, at this time I have to go for a previous
Okay, Thank
amendment I had.
Yep.
But thank you.
yep. Okay, so do we have any other issues? I got a couple things I'd like to bring up pertaining to the bylaw. And I would ask the Pat, if we would it be possible for the municipality to come up with a contract that has more stringent issues in it about protecting the municipality that would maybe alleviate some of the things that we have in our bylaw. So if we had a contract such that protects the municipality for the septic stuff, the electrical stuff, fire alarms and that kind of stuff. Because I think if, for instance, so we have a couple of short-term rental bylaws that are nature retreats. So they don't have water, they don't have hydro. They still have to pay $750 and they don't meet some of that criteria. So that kind of stuff we have to look at. And should it be a different price for those ones that are only charging $35 a night compared to $350 a night? So that kind of stuff. The reason I asked about the waiver policy is because I've had to sign a few of those my own with snowmobiles and ATVs that when we come to landowners. And it literally now don't get me wrong, when people sue, they sue everybody. But if we have some kind of a policy that is really stringent on what the municipality is not liable for, and the owners sign that will stand up pretty good in court, from what I understand, through the OFATV and the OFSC. So I wonder if we could put something more like that together, put more of the onus on the owner to make sure that their guests are looked after, and if something happens, that it would be the owner's issue, and the municipality would not be caught up in the middle of it. If can you maybe just
Well,
like not, I don't expect anything but I don't, and maybe we could, I could bring a couple of those policies together that we could look at.
we certainly could
Because
look-
I think some of the issues we have with the bylaw is that it's so stringent, and honestly, some of it I would have to look to see if, because I think if an OPP comes to your house, they can come on your property, but they have to have a warrant to come in your house. I don't think that says that on here. So not to say that it's not true, and I'm not an OPP officer, but past history, I think they need that. So I wonder if some of that's even a little bit too strong in the bylaw that once we get going and get looking at it. But I would like to entertain, and I can bring a couple of those waiver policies for insurance or liability issues that we can look at. And if you think that they would help us maybe alleviate some of the stuff that's in the bylaw, that would take a lot of stuff off some of our other people having to go and do inspections and costs for the people to get going. That makes sense.
Take her first.
Just one sec.
That's
you-
fine. Take-
You're okay? Okay, so I will. I know it's a lot, but and again, I'd like to know if we could put a time on tonight, because it's now 8:36. You want to say 9 o'clock that we'll,
Yeah.
okay, that's 2 hours. Everybody okay with that? Okay, so who did I have? Jamie.
So I wanted to touch on the difference between running a short-term rental and having a spa. My idea of having someone come to a spa is they're coming for that service, they're leaving for that service. Someone that's going to come and spend the night. Hopefully they're going to come and go for breakfast and spend some extra money within the community. And I think that's where that plays a different role. I do agree that, it isn't a very good percentage of sending out 40 or 51 applications and having 4 and none of them registered. I do agree that some of it needs to be looked after, especially, like the electrical. Most of that should be done in permits, which the township should have, assuming the house was built to code. I would like to see some more, if they're applying for annual renewal of a license, to show that they are keeping up with their maintenance of the septic, whether it's showing their pumping fees, whether they have a septic or a holding tank on property. That will make a difference as well. And I think those should be on as the questions, as opposed to just getting a septic inspection. So it could be great, you know, when they came and inspected it yesterday, but after they had 20 people through on the weekend and they've plugged it, well, tomorrow it's not so good. So I think, you know, keeping those records of it being maintained and upkept, the upkeep of it would be different as opposed to, you know, an inspection every year or anything like that would be more valuable.
You know, I agree with you 100%, but I think one of the biggest things of the issues that we have right now with this bylaw, and I think it's probably most of our complaints, is the people that don't live in the township. So, you know, we have people that live in Bowmanville or Trenton, and they got short-term rentals, Airbnbs right here in our municipality, and no one's around. It's a big different story if someone is living next door to it. We probably wouldn't have any of these complaints. Great.
First, Mike, to what you were raising, are you suggesting those to replace the bylaw, these waivers type things?
No, just to maybe alleviate some of the existing bylaw when it comes to all the rules.
Well, okay, but then that brings us right back to what you're talking about, Jamie. The problem with what's been happening is that people have been going in and renovating the homes as they are and adding more bedrooms and doing all kinds of things, not having permits, and then you really start to stress the system. So
Yeah.
it's not viable. You have to have a structure in place to really meet the needs. And yes, can we make it simpler? Maybe, sure. But I think there has to be something there. And I don't think waivers is really
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to think of ways to alleviate some of the big issues that we have when people come to get the license.
right. And there's getting the license is one thing, but it's also relief for the people who are being exposed to the STR owners that are not on site, that don't
Yeah.
even live in the township and are getting absolutely zero relief year after year from the continuation of the problems they're having. That's really why I'm here, because those
Yeah.
things need to be addressed as well.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think if everybody is that needs to be part of this bylaw going forward, that we need to look at that part. You know, if you own an STR, where do you live? Should be in the township beside it or close to it. I think Colleen had her hand up first, and I got somebody online, or
Yes, no, I think perhaps Rick's question may have answered this, and my question was to you, was what kind of waiver were you looking at? Because I don't think that we want to start removing requirements that may put the township and therefore the township exposed to legal liabilities. And then that's going to increase our taxes. So I think that we need to look at the bylaw that we have, and I just was confused as to what you were asking for, what kind of waivers you're asking for. I don't know that we want town council to start creating other bylaws to try to deal with the short-term rental, certain aspects of it.
yeah, no, so a waiver is, so
I know what waivers, but
well, I'm talking about protecting the township even more than what this bylaw does. Because I don't think there's enough in there, other than the inspections they do, to protect it. I think there needs to be more language in there. And I quoted the OFATV and the OFSC waivers that they have for, and also the one that the county has for the county forest. They got a big waiver. It's pretty strong, protecting the county. Right? And if we had a waiver like that, that's going to protect the municipality, I'm saying it might be better than putting the landowner or the short-term rental owner through a bunch of the loops that are going through right now with the bylaw. So not take the stuff out of the bylaw, but replace some of it with a proper waiver.
who's providing the waiver?
Well, we can, this committee, so we can, I mean, I can bring 3 of them next meeting that we could, I could give them the pad and I can put them out to the rest of you for your package to look at.
I guess what I'm saying is who's paying for the waiver? What is the, like?
Well, no, the waiver is just a protection that we have. for the-
Who's waiving what? That's my concern.
Well, so so the waivers that I'm talking about will in a court of law will protect the landowner or protect the township. So right now I see in here that there's just, you know, you got a septic, you got to go in for a septic expansion, electrical expansion, a fire, and on and on and on and on,
Yeah.
right?
So you're saying instead of having that, have somebody sign a waiver and say that if they are in violation of a septic issue, that they're going to indemnify the.
Well, it should go back on the owner,
It should go back.
right? We should be saying they have it. But are we running around in circles trying to make sure they have it when we can't even get them to fill out the,
Well, I think if they.
the contract.
If we can't get them to fill out the application and submit it, then that's a concern. Because I suspect right now we've got a bunch of short-term rental properties that are being operated. And therefore, because they're being operated without a license, they're in contravention of the bylaw, but there's no enforcement of the bylaw. So instead of making it, like, I'm concerned that we're trying to make it easier for short-term rental. But we can't even get the people who are running the short-term rentals to even start filling out the application and or the license. So I think that we need to deal with the fact that we've got a bylaw. There are likely short-term rentals that are operating right now. They don't have a license because nobody's licensed. And we have a kind of contravention of the bylaw, correct? Currently, but those contraventions aren't being enforced.
Well, what I'll do is I'll get a couple of these waiver forms that's been used. Now, they won't pertain to short-term rentals, but you'll get the gist of the language that's in them. And it's done by lawyers and it's done by municipal lawyers. And they put it together to protect the township.
And who signed it? I'm just confused as to, like, I know what a waiver is. I'm actually a lawyer, but I'm retired. But I'm trying to figure out, you know, who signs the waiver and what is the waiver in regards to?
The homeowner would sign the waiver protecting, that's what would, yes.
Sign the waiver saying that they comply with all these things? Or they're gonna indemnify the township?
Indemnify the township.
And so they're gonna say that so instead of saying that they comply with the bylaw, they're gonna say, instead of complying with portions of the bylaw, we're gonna indemnify you for this problem.
Well, no, we're still gonna ask that they do it, but I don't think we need to babysit them. So if something happens, I think this bylaw puts the township in a bigger part of the lawsuit if we don't have a better waiver form.
Well, I think the township's gonna be in a difficult position if they have a bunch of short-term rentals and they've got a bylaw and it's not being enforced.
Yeah. Definitely. No, you're absolutely right. And we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
Well, I guess I just wanted to make sure that before we start talking about waivers, I'll deal with the bylaw that's in front of us.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying it. Like, this is my issues with the bylaw.
That there aren't waivers.
Is I think there needs to be more stronger waivers to protect the township.
Okay, see, I didn't get that. From what you said. I took it as you wanted to take some stuff out of the current bylaw to make it easier, get people licensed, but then they'll sign a waiver. But if that's not what you meant, I may have misunderstood you.
Well, no, you're part right. But you're part right, but I'm saying that is that I don't know if it's legal. I'd like to know if it's legal that if we can pick anybody that's an enforcement officer, bylaw officer, a security firm, or someone that we just picked to go check it out. You know, if an OPP officer doesn't have a right to walk in that house without a permit, how does one of our?
I know that in the bylaw, it actually says that the bylaw, that the enforcement officer can actually go into the residence and check to make sure they're in compliance with the bylaw.
Yeah,
That's what the bylaw that the town council set out.
I understand that.
In there right now.
I just don't know if it's legal. Nicole.
The bylaw, first of all, we need to focus on the bylaw, whether we scrap it altogether and do a new one, or we amend the one that is there. The one that is there, again, like I said, is too aggressive. And I'm looking here at Great Highlands, for the licensing fee, for example. They have a 3-year renewable license fee, and there's 3 tiers to it. So owner occupied short-term rentals pay 0. They don't have to pay the license fee, but they have to comply to the regulations and rules. Plus, if they're on Airbnb, there's lots of regulations and rules and things that protect both and the township as well. Now, the second tier is a full home rental. So if you rent your full house, but you still live in the township, then the license fee is $300. And if And then all the Airbnbs or the short-term rentals would have an initial inspection fee of $200. So that's where you would get your money. So owner occupied, there is no license fee, and full home rental, it's $300 a year. And then everybody has to pay the $200 inspection fee. That is Grey Highlands Township that do it that way. And they have the same sort of township as we do. So it does make a lot of sense for that. And someone to come into my property unannounced and to come inspect my property is not legal, I wouldn't think. Just whenever they want, they can't just walk onto my property and say, hey, I'm here to inspect your.
Okay, I'm gonna take Valerie. Valerie?
Thank you. There is a checklist. Someone in the room suggested that we should have a checklist to make it easier for those people who want to have an STRA. And it's on page 30 of 70 pages, the short-term rental bylaw. And I'm wondering if we could just go down that checklist and see, because Mr. Chair, you've said there's some things you'd like to get rid of. And some people, Ashley, I think if I've got your name right, and the lady sitting next to her, they have indicated that they think some of these things are onerous. And I'm just wanting to look at the checklist, since originally my understanding was that we are amending the existing bylaw as opposed to trying to build a brand new bylaw. So if we had an idea of what things are considered too onerous as we go down the items required to complete the application, just as a suggestion, because it's all, the checklist is there for us right now.
Okay. Stephen?
Yeah, I just, I kind of want to see if I can maybe make a suggestion. I kind of feel, I'm not 100% sure if we're going to get to this later or not, but is it possible we can kind of go through each thing one at a time? I feel like we're kind of bouncing around and talking about, talking about parking spaces, and we're talking about septic tanks, and then we're talking about inspections, and we're talking about waivers. Like if we can kind of go through and just get a, if nothing else, kind of like get an idea. I'm also from a legal background. I don't practice anymore. I practiced in the US a long time ago, but go through and see where we stand, right? So it's like when a jury goes into a jury room, it's like, where do we stand? Do we all agree that this is the person? Yes. Okay. Do we all agree with the parking thing? Yes. Okay. Do we all think and kind of see where, like, what it is that's the big problems? And I understand it is important to look at other townships, but I think we need to really focus on what it is we, look at our township and say, what are the complaints? There's a lot of noise complaints, and maybe there's complaints of trespassing, and maybe even sounds like harassment or assault or something maybe. And those are all issues that obviously there's laws in place to deal with, but I think we need to kind of get a little bit more structure in how we go through it. It's my opinion. Because I'm kind of having a hard time keeping track of like what it is we liked and what it is we didn't like, and what we talked about, what we didn't talk about. And I know we're coming up on 9 o'clock, and we got lots more meetings to come up, but.
Not sure who was, but you go ahead, Grit,
Um,
and then I'll get Nancy next.
Okay, Valerie, I really like her suggestion of going through that list on page 30, because we could do that easily now. But I want to come back to the ideas of waivers and Colleen's comments, because this township cannot sign a waiver or accept signed waiver from someone absolving of things that are in the building code of requirements and our fire code requirements. We can't accept waivers saying that they're going to look after it. You're just opening yourselves up completely to being sued. So, it's not as simple as, yeah, you're going to tell us you're following all of these things, but how do we know? It's got to be done right. I mean, it doesn't have to be onerous. I'm all with you for that, but it can't just be waved away and hope that the township's absolved of its responsibilities, because then we don't need a government, do we?
Yeah, that's not what I was meaning. I'm just meaning we need something stronger than what's in this bylaw.
Okay, but do you agree that maybe going through that checklist is a good start point? Because I thought that was a great suggestion by Valerie. Page
Just
30 of 70.
Nancy had her hand up. I'm gonna take Nancy.
Yes, I was going to make the suggestion. I'm not fully aware of what the complaints are. So I think if we, in our next meeting, I'm proposing that we look at what the complaints are, look at that list and see how we can actually fix those issues. Because again, there's enforcement challenges with bylaws like the noise bylaw and the other issues that are happening. Nothing happens if somebody's got some crazy party going on at some rental. Nothing is rectified. Like, you know, the police aren't going, or they're busy doing something else. And then by the time it's dealt with, they come over, they're not even there. Like the people have left. So I need to know what the complaints are before I look at the list. I think that, you know, I hear it's noise. I hear that there's people that live up full time and they've got problems with people right beside them. So there's got to be a solution with waivers or something to really look at the people that are making the problems. Not all the other people in that 51 group that were mailed the packages. There's 4 that sent in their packages. There's probably 45 of them that aren't making any problems. So, but we're putting all these restrictions down and you know, make it, and it's very aggressive and stopping people from doing what they like to do. So I'd like to look at the list of the complaints.
Okay, so thanks, Nancy. Let's go through this checklist and we'll call it a night after that with some closing comments. And what do we got there, John?
I'm sorry, where's the checklist?
It's
Part of the
page 30 of the agenda.
Not of the procedure bylaw, of the bylaw, short-term rental one. Looks like that.
Yeah, this is what I printed and brought with me. I think I was-
It's called the short-term rental accommodation license application checklist. Sorry, I should have put my hand up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I brought a copy of it with me somewhere.
Hey, got it?
Listen,
Everybody got it?
Nicole, do you guys have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Okay, so first one, complete license application form and payment of $750 application/renewal fee.
I think we have to take a look at the actually application or the application fee, because I think that $750 is way too steep.
Can we ask why it was $750, how we got to that number? Or is that a Daryl question? Jennifer?
When we did the short-term rental accommodation bylaw in one of the reports, we looked at the cost of licensing them. And we went through the cost of the inspections for both building and fire. And we looked at cost of the actual enforcement of the bylaw, and $750 is what it cost. In one of the, at the next meeting, I can bring forward that calculation made in one of the previous reports to council. But there were some calculations made on cost, staff cost, time cost, travel.
Okay, that'd be great. Perfect. Great.
And yes, because I was at that meeting, unaware of what went into the calculations of the amount. But what I kind of agree with is that while it seems high, maybe for the first time, it should be on the higher side. And then once the renewal process goes through, because there still has to be an annual renewal process, that if it's a good operating STR, that those rates could be lowered accordingly. But if someone's on probation as an STR because they've had 3 complaints, they could actually have the license taken away after that. But if they've got a couple of strikes against them, then perhaps their fee should still be the same rate because they're the ones that are causing the extra work effort to try to regulate it. So I think maybe looking at a tiered system for the annual renewal for, good STRs that never have any complaints.
Okay. Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Alicia, go ahead.
I agree that it should be somewhat tiered. I mean, it's very apparent that probably we're not going to get away from a license fee altogether. But I do agree that it should be tiered, but I think in an effort to get 51 plus STRs licensed, if that's what the goal is to do, is to get as many licensed, I think that the fee should start much lower. And then I think that if you have so many complaints and a lot of them, I think there's a lot less STRs actually getting complaints. I think there's a lot more good hosts than I think there is bad hosts. So I think it should be the bad hosts that should be penalized rather than all of the good STRs. Because I think if you look at, let's even just say the 51 that Yolanda has identified, I think by getting those ones licensed at a much lower rate is more beneficial for the township than putting $750 and you only get 10 license fees. Do you know what I mean? So I think that that's more beneficial, and then do a higher fee or a revoke of license based on if you're getting tons of complaints against you or you're not complying or whatever it happens to be. Fines.
Excellent.
Yeah, fines.
Yeah. And just to add to that, and again, we need to look at the ones that we have that are like the nature retreats
Right.
that aren't charging the big money.
Well, it could actually be tiered even further into that if it's owner occupied, or if it's a retreat, or if it's whatever, it could be looked at. If it's a corporation that owns the business, maybe that, I don't know, it needs to be looked at further. All I'm saying is that the license fee, that $750 needs to be reviewed and amended in my opinion.
Jamie, you had your hand up?
I did. I just wonder what the recourse is for these people, like if they don't pay these fees, because a lot of them probably make enough money that they're just going to roll the dice and do it. So what's the recourse for these people if they don't pay and they're just going to rent it in anyways? Where's the bylaw enforcement? And we can have all the bylaws in the world, but there's nobody there to enforce it. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, hopefully through this whole process, we're going to get the enforcement will be there.
Sure hope so.
And that's the only thing. I look at things as you can't get half pregnant. We either got to do this or we don't do it. Right? So we got to do it. Colleen.
I think that it would be helpful if we could get that information that Jennifer mentioned.
Yeah.
So we can actually look. Obviously, there was thought that went into the amount of the fee. So I think that we should look at that information before we determine what kind of recommendations that we make to council. And in that regard, I believe, and I could be wrong, that the penalty for not operating without, or for operating without a license is actually $500. So that actually encourages people not to get a license and not to do it. If that in fact is the case.
Good point.
Because if you
think
don't
that's
have
per
a
day,
license,
though,
it's maybe actually $500.
Yeah, very good point.
And I should also point out.
We can't
that-
hear.
Sorry?
No, go ahead. I'll take
Well,
take
and I
Nancy
have to
Miller.
say that there are a number of, and I believe they are problem short-term rentals that are renting out at about $1,000 a night. So a $750 licensing fee. So at least one of a very problematic SDR in the township is renting out for close to $1,000 a night. And there are some other SDRs in the neighborhood that are around that figure. So my concern is that a $750 fee is less than one night's rental for some SDR owners, and that's not going to encourage them to comply with the bylaw. So that's something I think that we need to take into consideration, but definitely work's already been done to come up with a $750 fee, and the idea behind that. I think that we also really have to look into what is it going to cost to enforce this. And if we all are talking about structures and different levels for things, that just adds to the enforcement, because one SDR owner is going to say that I'm owner occupied. Well, is it owner occupied? They own it, but are they living that there as their principal residence, or is it their second residence? You get into all kinds of variations, and it's going to be extremely difficult to enforce. And I got the sense from earlier that perhaps we don't have enough. There may not be manpower to enforce the bylaw as it currently stands.
Okay, I'm gonna take Valerie and then Alicia, and then it's, you know, it's after, a little bit after 9 now. Jennifer, do you want?
I was just gonna say one quick thing.
Yeah.
I believe that there is recourse if the municipality has a licensing bylaw and they require short-term rental accommodations to be licensed, that there is recourse through the short-term rental accommodation venues, Airbnb, BBRO, whatever it is. If the municipality can contact them, say, we have a licensing bylaw, this isn't licensed. I believe there is a recourse through that to have it removed from their venues. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe that is an option for the municipality if there are Airbnbs that are or BBROs, whatever, short-term rental accommodations that are posing problems that aren't licensed. And we have a licensing bylaw.
Valerie?
Just quickly, I would say let's wait and get the information as to how the $750 application fee was developed. I like the idea of tiered, although the second last speaker made very important comments about the additional work that would be required to ensure that the category they were saying they were in was, but we do have at least a couple of the nature operations that need to be addressed in some fashion. And whether it's inside or outside of the short-term rental accommodation, I think will be one of the things that this committee should make a recommendation on. But as you mentioned, it's after 9 o'clock, and I'll leave my comments there.
Thank you, Valerie. Okay, so just quickly, just to review what we want to do for the next meeting. I think, Nicole, you're gonna give your package to
Is that okay?
Pat.
Yep.
And are we going to get a couple more bylaws to go with that package that we can talk about? And then we'll finish this list and then we'll get on our own bylaw. Great.
As a suggestion for us, maybe could we also get each of the members to put down maybe what their goals are, what they would like to see, each of us do our perspective and keep it to, you know, half a page or 1 page that we could share with everybody.
With our bylaw?
With our bylaw and with how we feel it should be in this township. But yes, we have to start with our bylaw because that's what we have. We can't just go and say, well, we don't like the bylaw, so we're not going to go with it. It's been passed. It is law in our township. So we have to work with it and start there. And let's find the way we can get there, because I think there's room for all of it to work, really. So, but if we all get our ideas down, because we're spending so much time talking and not getting anywhere, because we haven't really looked at anything. So we got to get to the point where we're actually looking at the black and white on the paper.
So I would say next meeting, we will finish this here, this checklist. And then we will maybe comment on some of the bylaws. So what we should do maybe now is pick another meeting. Okay. Now, do we want to have one? Go ahead, Yolanda.
You said we want to comment on some of the other bylaws. Are you talking other bylaws from other municipalities?
Yes.
And if so, which ones have you chosen that you would like to see on the agenda? There was a list of what, 5 or 6 of them? Is there like a few you want, or do you want all the bylaws from all those townships?
No, I think we talked about 4. We would pick 4 plus ours.
Okay. Did you want to choose those 4 now so we can prepare them and put them on that agenda?
Who's going to pick the 4?
Yeah.
Yolanda and I, or?
Right. Yeah. Who's going to
Well-
make those choices? How are we going to pick those municipalities that you want on there? Do you want to decide that now, or do you want just the clerk's office to provide you with 4 out of the list?
comment? Good.
We have a committee here of, very intelligent people who can do some research. How about if we take the load off of staff instead of having them have to do all this research? What if someone were to say, I'll pull together the information from the various websites and provide it to the clerk's department so that they can add it to the agenda?
Volunteer? Nicole?
I'm not volunteering.
No.
In the package,
Yeah.
there's information that we've already pulled up. Those packages are well researched, and there's a lot of info in there, and you can each get one, so you'll go home with a better idea. And there are a list of townships that already have bylaws in place, so you can pick from those. And the four bottom ones are the ones that I suggested that were similar to our township size.
Is there a
Size.
reason that couldn't be distributed to us
I'm
tonight?
going to, yeah.
Okay.
I
I
wonder,
did at the beginning
So-
of the meeting.
To speed up things, would everybody be okay with North Frontenac, Brighton? Gravenhurst, Gray High and ours? Gray High and ours.
Great.
And just to get that out of the board, then we'd have something to focus on instead of making another part of our next meeting out of it.
So ours, Brighton, Gray Highland and North Frontenac, is that? what you
Yeah.
and tiny as well.
And
said?
would you-
I think you.
Tiny.
We have tiny already on the agenda.
And Joan, was that one of the ones that you mentioned that gave a good presentation? You said
Yeah,
there were two.
Tiny,
and-
Tiny and
Prince Edward County.
Prince Edward County.
Prince
Those are
Edward
much
County
larger
would be, those
places.
would be the two that really spent a lot of time, worked really hard, got it right. The fines, I believe for Prince Edward County were substantial, but they have a lot of clients there. So they, that's how they tackled it. So those two were really good.
Okay.
Okay,
I think, sorry, I think that we just have to be, when looking at Tiny and Prince Edward County, I understand that they have very extensive bylaws and they've gone through it and they made great presentations. But though I would say, in my opinion, those two townships are not a representative of what we are in Alnwick Haldeman, only because they're very resort-based communities. And so I think they have far more short-term rentals and weekend, type activities like that, if you think of Tiny Township and Wasaga Beach. I mean, we're not Wasaga Beach, we're also not Prince Edward County, where they have tourists flooding to Prince Edward County every weekend, every summer. So I think we just have to make sure that we're trying to compare a little bit apples to apples, not apples to watermelons.
go ahead, Joan.
Chair. I think one thing to keep in mind, you bring up a valid point with the size of the municipalities that Tiny and Prince Edward County are. Thing is, you're gonna find something unique about each one, regardless of the size. And one thing that I did like about Tiny when I was reading through it was it had a map and it listed all the SDRs, which was really good. Because as you mentioned, we could go to a map and say, well, I didn't see that STR, and so I can, notify the township that they're running an STR that's not licensed. So I think just keep an open mind when you're going through all of them, and you're gonna pick something regardless of the size. And that was one of the things that I did pick up from Tiny amongst other things. So just keep that in mind when you're going through them.
Okay, gang, so can I
Point.
was just wondering if I could make a motion to adapt for these bylaws and move forward with a reference. Plus ours would be 5. But I think we only wanted to take 4 plus ours.
Well, I'm not really sure.
Okay. So PEI, Brighton,
Prince Edward County,
because I think that was maybe better than Gravehurst, North Frontenac, and Gray Highland, plus ours. Everybody okay with that?
Okay, so
Yeah.
Prince Edward.
Prince Edward County, yeah.
So Prince
Okay.
Edward, Gray Highland, North Frontenac and Brighton and
Oh.
Tiny.
So I'd like to keep it to
not
4+
Brighton.
hours.
Yes, or somebody suggested Brighton, but I don't think I have.
What were the four again? I'm sorry.
Brighton, Prince Edward County, North Frontenac, and Gray Highland. If we take Tiny, I'd like to drop one of them out, just so
I
we
would say
can,
drop it Prince Edward County, but you already have Tiny. I think it's very, I think of those two that presented, they're very heavy regulated. Tiny's very heavy regulated as well, right?
I think
I think the point is
Well-
is that we want to get the information so we can compare.
and we're
It doesn't
kind
mean
of
we're gonna-
grasping at straws who we're going to include, so.
Well-
If we're going to include, I think we could probably bring on 6 and look at them. That would give us a good cross section.
okay,
The other thing is I haven't really looked at, the municipalities that are that close to Alma-Coleman, which was a really good point that you brought up. So I think we could start with that group. And if we have to include more, we certainly can. But it's a
Okay.
good start.
so we read them off one more time? Have you?
Gray Island, North Frontenac, Brighton, and Tiny.
Did you get Blue Water? Did you get Blue Water in there? Blue Water, because Blue Water was another good one.
Yeah.
But sorry,
Okay.
Joan, the one that you mentioned, that the other, was that Prince Edward County?
Prince Edward County.
Yeah, so if they have a good
And
presentation. they're gonna include Prince Edward. You can have a later meeting, I mean,
And that's the thing with agendas, we're going to have many agendas. We're going to have many meetings. So if you do want more bylaws brought forward from other municipalities, we can always bring them forward at a future date.
Yep. And maybe, Joan, out of the PEI, if you just want to bring the map and show it to us, what they've done with the map,
Tiny township.
that's in the tiny township also? Okay, okay,
Mike? Sorry.
go ahead, Grit.
There's no way any of us want to be reviewing hundreds of pages
Yes.
from 6
Yeah.
different municipalities. I'm going to come back to the requirement and I'm willing to volunteer some time because I love researching anyways. But I think what we need is a summary of what these townships municipalities are having in their bylaws, not reading through all of the whereas and whatnot and this and that. So I'll take it upon myself, if it's okay with everyone, to start to pull together some of this based on what you guys have already done. I can't wait to see your sheet.
Yeah, it's
Exactly,
this research has been done. It's there in very simple.
for certain ones.
Prince Edward County is on the list. Tiny Township is on the list. North Frontenac is on the list. And Gray Highland is on the list. So they're already, they're on there. In the package that are going
And you're
around,
gonna give
a
that.
summary of what.
Very brief.
Perfect.
so they're
Okay.
summaries of the existing bylaws.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I don't want this to become onerous for our staff.
No.
They just don't have the time.
Yeah,
Well, and I think the idea that we're gonna look at it for guidance, right? We're not saying, oh, now we
Yeah.
don't have the tiny township bylaw. No, we've got a bylaw. Let's look at the other ones, and if there needs to be some tweaking, we can get some ideas from the other bylaws.
Let's hope.
Yeah,
we-
and that's was kind of gonna be my last comment. If we might be throwing the cart ahead of the horse, because I like what Grit said about if we look at our bylaw, and while we're looking at our bylaw, we've all read these other bylaws that we could maybe divert to if there's something in ours that we don't like.
I want to set up a spreadsheet that actually has all of these items across, like, if you go, beautiful. I can't wait to see it.
Okay. Okay. So next meeting. When can everybody come? Do we want it a week from now, 2 weeks from now?
that's it. We got a lot of stuff we talked about today.
Yes, great. It was a great meeting.
I'm away March break.
Yolanda, a week from now, what doesn't interfere with our regular councils?
Yeah, I am. So on the Wednesday, that's still a good night? Because that's March the 8th.
Yep.
It would be nice to keep the momentum going. I'm certainly available.
Yes, we can do it hybrid, so we can either be
Okay.
Zoom or in person, so.
Wednesday conflicts with my choir, but I've already been off on leave for a month, so I'll take another month because I think this is very important.
Okay, Wednesday, the 8th, good with everybody, 7 PM, right here again.
I'll be late, but I'll join.
Yep. Everybody on Zoom's good?
Yes,
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Grit, seconded, Stephen, all in favor? Thank you, everybody. It's a great meeting to start with.
Yes.
Thank you.